All right, so welcome to our weekly class meeting. And like we were just talking about, as far as announcements, nothing major other than we're still uncertain about the blackout dates and things like that. So we're just gonna, it's up to your instructor as to how you continue on. So if you're not sure, please verify with them as to what they would like for you to do. And again, my class, we're continuing with Google Classroom until it's done. I think that's pretty much it as far as announcements. Today we are talking about modifiers. You guys are in chapter 10, and it's all about modifiers. Going through the chapter itself goes through each different one and gives you the description and what they're used for. I have a short little presentation for you guys today. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so we can jump right in. Here we go. So CPT modifiers, fun stuff. The reason this is one of the first things we talk about when we get into CPT coding is because you have to learn when to recognize, or you have to learn to recognize when you need to use a modifier, when they need to be attached. There are certain situations and certain circumstances that require a modifier to be attached to a procedure code or an E&M code. And I believe chapter 11 is all about E&M. So we'll be talking about that in detail next week. I'm not presenting it, but one of our other illustrious instructors will present that information to you guys. But for today's purposes, E&M, when I say E&M, think office visit. Okay? Think office visit or something along those lines. It's evaluation and management codes. But they have to be attached. Modifiers need to be attached in certain circumstances. So today, our objectives for our meeting are going to be to learn what a modifier is and why it's important to coding, go over the most commonly used modifiers, and then at the end, we're going to have a little bit of fun. All right, so what is a modifier? Modifiers inform third-party payers of circumstances that may affect the way payment is made. And basically what these are, guys, in regard to CPT, it's a 2-digit code ranging, I think, from like 21 or 22 to 99. And it's going to be 2 numbers, and they have a little hyphen and then the 2 numbers. If y'all started reading chapter 10 already, you've recognized what they look like in the list, because they have a list of all of them in the book, in your textbook. All right. So Appendix A of your CPT manual lists the full description for all modifiers and the circumstances for their use. And if you have a 2022 edition of the CPT manual, that starts on page 917. And if you want to go ahead and flip there now, if you're following along, and that way when we go over some of the most commonly used ones, you'll have those descriptions there to see how what I'm talking about is lining up with what they're saying in the CPT manual. Okay. And then our little activity that we're going to do in the end is going to require you to be.
Did you say page 19?
Or looking at it. 917.
917.
In what book?
Monique, yours might be the 2023, so it might be 919.
Yeah, I have the 24.
Two pages difference in the versions. Yeah, so if you have a 2023 manual, that's page 919 instead of 917. All right, so what these 2-digit codes do is they make the code more specific. Remember in ICD-10 coding, we had to indent down and add on characters as the codes got more specific for what they were talking about. In CPT coding, we add on modifiers to add on that information to let the third-party payers know, hey, this was, this procedure was done on both knees or both elbows, or there were 2 surgeons used, or this was a separate procedure than one already performed. Different circumstances require different modifiers. And we'll see what I'm talking about once we start going over them. So what types of information do modifiers indicate? What kind of information do they give the third-party payers? They indicate if it's an altered service, which can be a service greater than usually required. Like say they're doing a surgical procedure and the patient starts bleeding out and they have to go to extreme measures to stop the bleeding. Well, then we need to let the insurance company know that, because the more work they put out, shouldn't they get paid more? Right? If they're doing more work than what it's supposed to be. So that's why modifiers can affect payment. If we don't let them know that, hey, this was a service above and beyond what it should have been, how do they know to pay them more, right? To reimburse them more. If there were any unusual circumstances that went on during the procedure, if the procedure was part of another service or something like that, if it was a discontinued service, there's actually one modifier that indicates discontinued service. That's all it is. Like we talked about before, if it was a bilateral procedure, meaning it was done on both sides of the body at the same time. If multiple procedures were done at the same time, there's modifiers that indicate that in some circumstances. They also, professional part of the service or procedure only. When it comes to doing things like reading x-rays or some lab results, things like that, there's a professional component that we need to let the insurance company know about. And there's a modifier to indicate that specifically. And more than one physician or surgeon. There are several modifiers that will indicate more if there was an assistant surgeon, if there were two surgeons that operated as co-surgeons at the same time, if there was an assistant surgeon used because a surgical resident was not available, there's a modifier for that. They can be pretty specific on some of them, okay? But those are all some of the circumstances and situations that modifiers will let them clue them into, basically. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the most commonly used. And when I say most commonly used, if you work for a general practice, a practitioner, a GP, and he sees, a range of patients, then you'll see some of these codes. Or if you work for a general surgeon, you'll see some of these codes. All right, so number 24. And like I said, guys, they range from, I think, 21 or 22 to 99. And we're going to go over about 6 or 7 of them here. Don't worry, we're not going to go over all of them. If you want the full list, again, that's in Appendix A, and also you can find it in your textbook at the beginning of Chapter 10. But number 24, unrelated E&M service, which again, that's like an office visit, by the same physician or other qualified healthcare professional during a post-operative period. Okay, so in layman's terms, basically that is, if a patient had a procedure done and there's a global period called a post-operative period, right? It's usually 10, 30, 90 days, depending on what the procedure is. If they're in that period and they go to that same doctor for something else, they have an office visit with that doctor for an unrelated is the key word there. And the other key word is the same physician, because there's another CPT code that says related E&M service by the same physician or a different physician. So you got to read the definitions, especially like on your exams when you're matching things. Make sure you're paying attention to if it says the same physician or a different physician, because there's codes for both, okay? And they're usually like 24 and 25 or 76 and 77, things like that. So pay attention when you're reading the definitions. But this one is for an E&M service that's not related to the surgery that they just had done, basically. And it's done by the same physician. And when they say other qualified healthcare professional, they mean in the same group with the physician that did that first procedure. It can be that physician or someone in the same practice or group Okay, and that will count. All right, so number 26 is another one that's used a lot. And again, this one is that professional component when we talked about. Modifier 26 is used to designate the professional, the physician component of procedures that have both professional and technical components, such as the interpretation of ultrasounds or x-rays. All right, you have to go to school to learn how to read an x-ray or an ultrasound and things like that. It takes a certain amount of skill, a certain professional skill to do that. So you would use modifier 26 to indicate that. Okay. Modifier 50 indicates a bilateral procedure. If the same procedure is performed on a mirror image organ of the body, such as right and left kidneys, or right and left knees, right and left breast, right and left arm, and etc., modifier 50 indicating a bilateral procedure would be reported. It's got to be done on both sides to be counted as bilateral. And the patient has to have two of the same. It's left and right of whatever it is. Okay. All right. So just a couple more. Modifier 59 indicates a distinct procedural service. Modifier 59 is reported to indicate that services that are usually bundled into one payment are provided as separate services. Just an example of how this can be used. I go to the dermatologist once a year because I have little small skin cancers that will pop up on my face or arms or shoulders. All right. If they have to take these off of me separately, they may use modifier 59. Instead of doing them all at one time, in some instances, they would be bundled. Okay, they would use one code for doing all of my body or whatever. If they had to do some in separate intervals or something like that, they may use a modifier 59 to indicate that this was a separate procedure than what else was done. Okay. Modifier 76, a repeat procedure or service by the same
Ms.
physician.
Brandy, I
Yes,
had a question.
yes, ma'am.
So when you use modifier 59, every time you submit a bill for it to remove one of those skin cancers, they would have modifier 59
No, not
on there?
necessarily.
Okay.
It depends on what they did during that visit and how it was broken up per se.
Miss Brandy, can I chime in on it?
Yes, you can. Please do.
Okay. So when modifier 59 is actually used, is normally in conjunction with a E&M code, like office visit 99214, 99215, 99214, which means that they evaluate and manage the patient for what they came in for. And then the separate procedure for the lancing of the skin cancer, or however it is that they remove the skin cancer, would be line item 2. So to separate those two line items, that E&M service and that removal of that skin cancer, they would add 59 modifier to that E&M code to let the insurance know this office visit for the evaluation and management is billed out separately. The procedure for the removal of the cancer is separate from that. Do not bundle those. Those are two separate procedures.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Danielle. I like that we do
You're
the
welcome.
stuff because sometimes one of us can explain something better than the other one. And that's probably a prime example of one of those. All right, so modifier 76 is a repeat procedure or service by the same physician or other healthcare professional. All right. So Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Courtney was just talking about, if they have to say they went in and took care of some skin cancers one day and they had to go back and do a repeat, would they use the modifier 76?
Yeah, they will use a modifier 76 to well, actually, if they went and they billed for that service on one particular day and they had to do a follow-up for a different for that same procedure, And they would normally put that all on one claim. That would usually be on one claim. If they know that they had to go in and add additional. Now, if it's something that happened on another day, I've seen insurance companies, if you go in for something and then you go in for that same particular procedure a couple of days from then, you can bill for that procedure all over again. You just can't bill for the same date of service, same procedure on the same day. So that would be a whole different claim.
Yeah, because then it would look like a duplicate.
Right.
For
As
the
long as
insurance
it's not on the same day, same procedure, then it won't deny for duplicate. But if it's a different day, 2 days, 1 day, as long as the date of service is different, that physician can bill for that as a whole nother visit.
Right. And generally, that's a lot of times when you call an insurance company, one of the first questions they ask you is date of service, because a lot of the claims processing is broken up into dates of service. They want to know what was done on what day. All right, so modifier 79, an unrelated procedure or service by the same physician or other qualified healthcare professional during the postoperative period. Okay, so like we were kind of talking about earlier, I kind of mentioned it earlier. If somebody has a procedure done and they're still considered in that postoperative period, and they have something completely different, and this is procedure or service, not E&M. There's a difference there, okay? This is going to be attached to your procedure code, not your E&M code. Like Danielle was saying, modifier 59 is to indicate, or I'm sorry. Strike that. That's not what she said. But for 79, it's on a procedure or a service, not an E&M code. And it's going to be the same physician or another physician in that group or that clinic. Let's see. And then modifier 99 is the last one we're going to talk about. And it indicates multiple modifiers. And the only time you ever have to use this one, guys, is if your insurance company, the third party payer that you're dealing with, does not accept multiple modifiers. On your CMS 1500 form, there's 4 spots for modifiers that you can attach on after the code. Some insurance companies will not accept that. I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but some of them do not. And if you get in an instance where they deny your claim for multiple modifiers, they'll generally accept a 99. That'll indicate this has multiple modifiers. And you may or may not have to attach some additional records
lay in the other bowl. Let me go get them.
to let them know exactly what those multiple modifiers are indicating. Okay. Any questions thus far about any of the modifiers we talked about? No?
And Ms. Brittany, can I chime in for a second?
Yes,
This is
you
very impromptu, you guys, and I apologize. My camera was off. I wasn't sure if I was going to even be able to talk because again, I have a toddler with me today, but I apologize that my camera's off because my students, I'm very big about cameras being on, so I sincerely apologize. But I wanted to, and Ms. Brandy, is okay if I add on?
Absolutely.
So I wanted to kind of go out the book a little bit more into practical things that you run across with modifiers when you're billing. For instance, Ms. Brandy definitely mentioned that when you're billing for modifier, it does affect the reimbursement rate for procedures. It can be lessened, but in some instances, it can deny the service altogether. Like the claim will not pay out at all. And this is based per payer. So in our book, they're just giving us what those modifiers are. These modifiers, in some instances, are not universal. And when I say that they're not universal, this means that they are not applicable to all insurances. Different insurance companies require different types of modifiers depending on the service, especially for telehealth, telemedicine. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
For instance, this is, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield. And as a biller, and I tell my students all the time, 75% of your job is going to be researching the information that you need to apply to your claim to make sure that your claims are going out correctly. So if, for instance, I needed to know what modifiers I needed to put on telemedicine for Regents, specifically Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield, I would want to go to their website. We can always, the good old search engine is always our friend. Let's see, modifiers. Okay. Okay. So it brings us up a whole bunch of stuff about modifiers. We're going to click on modifiers. Okay. What are we needing information about the modifiers for? So we're looking for modifier reimbursement policies specific to telemedicine, right? So we're going to click on this. Okay. Let's just put in a random zip code. I don't think that this 98. Hang on, let me get a zip code for this because this particular pair only services Washington, Ohio. I think those are the states that it actually services. It does not service all states, so we cannot use a random one. Just a second, let me get a zip code for Washington State. Okay, 982 9.
Try 98101, Danielle.
I think 98248. I got that one popped up just now. Let me see. Okay, so that one worked. Brandy, I was gonna grab that one if it didn't. Okay, so this goes into our reimbursement policy. So again, we're gonna make it easier for ourselves. We're gonna go and use our Control F function, our Control Find, because we don't want to read all this stuff if we don't have to, right? So let's type in virtual, and there we have virtual care. Okay. And this is going to give us a breakdown of all of our modifiers that we can use for virtual care, which is telehealth for this specific payer. So I just want you guys to keep in mind that in our books, it gives us a general breakdown of our modifiers, but our modifiers are not universal. Our modifiers are applicable per payer, per insurance. Every insurance company works different in the way that they want their claims to be sent out. I know that sucks, but one good thing about it, when you bill for a particular service and a particular payer, like for instance, you might go into a physician's office where 75% of their patients are Blue Cross Blue Shield. You might go to a physician's office where 75% of their patients are Medicare patients. And that instance, most of the time, those modifiers will apply to all of those claims because it is the same payer. So don't put it in your head where you have to think that you have to figure out all these modifiers for all these payers. Most providers are going to stick to a specific set of payers they're going to deal with. Some of them are not going to deal with a wide range of payers. So you're not going to need to do this for all payers, just your payers that you're going to be billing out claims for. So under here, like I said, it gives us kind of a breakdown. It tells us our place of service 2, place of service 10, which are both telehealth place of services. And it tells us that modifier GT or 93 must be used to reflect the technology used to deliver this service. If one of those modifiers are not submitted on the claim line, the claim may be returned to the provider to resubmit with the correct modifier. So in this instance, your claim will deny because it is a requirement, meaning that it will not go through. If you put a place of service 10 or 2 on that particular claim and you do not put the applicable modifier, that applies to that insurance company, that claim is actually going to deny. So again, I like to give you guys little tidbits of information that we don't find in the book, but you will actually really see once you begin working in your field. And that's my 5 minutes, y'all.
That's awesome, Ms. Danielle. Thank you, because that is a great point that I did not even think to make.
That's why we're here. We're a team. We're a team now.
That's it. That's yes, and y'all, and Miss Danielle is absolutely right. A lot of this stuff with claims and billing is payer dependent. It's all on their preferences and what they specify that you need. And once you go to work for a specific clinic or facility or wherever you go to work, physician, whatever, and you start seeing the same claims all the time, you see the same insurance companies on a regular basis, you will learn these things and they will stick with you for the next time that you see a claim just like that. Okay, so let's take what we have learned about modifiers and what's in Appendix A on page 917 in our CPT manual, and let's apply that. I've got, feel free to shout it out, whoever gets to it first. But which modifier are we going to use in these circumstances? And our first one is the patient has separate lesions. Which one are we going to use? Which modifier?
For any of my students that is on here, if we participate and get in locate the modifiers first, I will be giving out bonus points for my
Is that
students.
modifier 59?
Look at Stacy. Stacy, want them bonus points.
Yes, girl. Yes.
I got you, Stacy. I got you.
Yes, ma'am. Distinct procedural services, modifier 59. Very good, Stacy.
Thank you.
What's the email we go to for the CPT books? Because I don't have my CPT book with me.
I don't know how your instructor sent it out to you. Mine is on my stream in Google Classroom for my people to download. Did you download it, Misty? Or
It is in our Elsevier books. If you go to your step-by-step, the appendix is in
Mhm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
very good. See, I learned
Because
something.
the one I downloaded from Google Classroom is only going to page 60 when I download it.
You can
In your
also look at
Evolve
your
book, in your
textbook, too.
textbook.
Your textbook, as in chapter 10, has all of them listed out and what they are.
On a step by step. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. So is the page numbers different in the step by step?
Yeah, the page number I have up there was for the CPT manual in
The
there.
page number for the modifiers we're on in the step-by-step book is 258.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so this is one that we did not talk about specifically, but it is one that you will see. The patient had an office visit or an E&M service where the decision to have surgery was made. So let's say they did some testing and they came back on a particular day to go over lab results, and the doctor decided in that particular visit that, hey, we need to go ahead and have surgery because of XYZ.
Modifier 57.
It's 57.
57.
Very good.
Yeah.
57, yes. Very good. All right, which modifier do we use if the surgeon operated on both knees at the same time? We talked about it.
50.
Yes, Jackie, that's my student. Modifier 50. Which modifier do we use if A patient is in her post-operative period for a back surgery, hurts her knee, goes to see the same orthopedic surgeon.
That is gonna be 51.
No,
Is it 78?
no.
Is it 55?
Y'all are making me second guess
76.
myself. Nope, 55 is post-operative management only. This is not gonna be 55.
Is it 50?
Let me double check my stuff. Make sure. Okay, so
I think it would be 58.
here's the differences. All right, y'all are looking at the 55 modifiers. Those are going to be attached to your procedure services. And I didn't specify this in the example, so it was kind of a trick question.
Mm,
But let's say I'm
Okay.
talking office visits, E&M service. A patient is in her post-operative period for a back surgery, hurts her knee, and goes to see the same orthopedic surgeon. Has an office visit with that surgeon to see about her knee. So it's an
76.
unrelated.
Is it 79?
Look in the lower numbers. In like the 20, 20 something.
24?
24, yes. Yes. It could be an unrelated E&M or it could be an unrelated procedure. It's all in the wording.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah. That was kind of tricky. That's kind of my fault. I'll change that one for the next time. All right, number 5. 2 surgeons operated as co-surgeons during a procedure.
Is it 62? 62?
62. Winner, chicken dinner. 62. Co-surgeons is the key word there, guys. All right, and last but not least, XYZ Insurance Company does not accept multiple modifiers. Which one do you
99.
use?
99.
99, that's right. Very good. All right, sweet. All right, so a lot of fun. Modifiers, guys, are not that complicated because they literally list them all out for you and tell you what they are and what they do and how to use them. If you go into the appendix in the CPT manual, there are guidelines and examples under each one as to how you use them effectively. So any questions or concerns about anything as far as modifiers are concerned? Miss Danielle, anything else any more tidbits you want to throw in?
No, ma'am, that
Any
was
more coding
it.
gold?
That was it. That's all I have for y'all today.
Awesome. And if y'all don't have any questions for me, that's all I've got as well. But I would just always, as always, thank y'all so much for your time. Appreciate it so much. Y'all taking time out of your busy day to join us and soak up some knowledge. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye, y'all.
Alrighty,
Bye.
bye.